Welcome to the Possibility Perspective with me, Jess. Authentic, bold, and challenging conversations. The authentic part comes in as me just showing up with an openness to possibilities. The bold is getting to some topics that might ruffle some feathers. And the challenging is for all of us, to challenge ourselves, be open to looking at things through a different lens. You'll hear stories from me, conversations with peers, and interviews with experts on a variety of topics, all with different perspectives. Now, let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Possibility Perspective. Happy New Year. Today is the first episode of the new year, and I'm really excited about today's topic because I have the Pushy Broad, and today's topic is the Pushy Broad perspective. And so we're going to find out what exactly that is. What does that mean? Because the way a lot of us think, that could probably have a negative connotation to it, but we're going to talk about why it's not and who the Pushy Broad is and maybe how we could all be in our Pushy Broad persona sometimes when it's needed. So today my guest is Ellen Stewart, aka Pushy Broad from the Bronx. She is a certified life coach, recovery coach. She's a radio show / live streaming TV host of Recovery Recharged, Women Who Push for More. She's been an incredible mentor to me in a lot of ways, and so I'm excited to welcome her to the show. Ellen, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me. What a wonderful introduction, which I don't always get as the Pushy Broad, so unless I'm doing it myself, right? Happy New Year to everyone.
Let's start with who the Pushy Broad is to you and why. Where did this come from?
Well, originally, I think it came from my father. My father raised 3 children. I was the oldest of 3, and I think he wanted a strong boy, because every father wants a son, and he got a girl. So he taught me that I could be just as good in a lot of different ways. And when you're a child of the 50s and 60s, that's saying a lot when you have a father who is definitely, by all intents and purposes, even though he didn't realize it, a feminist. Someone who believed that a woman was just as capable as a man. And because of that, he instilled in me to speak up for what I wanted, hence the Pushy Broad.
So I want to talk about that for just a second because, obviously I was not around in the 50s and 60s.
Thanks so much for that, Jessica.
But there's something to be said about understanding somebody else's experience and perspective from a different, let's say, era, a different mindset of people, because I think that was an unusual mindset to have in that time. Let's say, I don't know if unusual is the right word, but I have the, blessings or whatever you want to call it of having grown up in a time where, there was a lot of work done for women in the past, for women like me to be able to show up and do what we do and be the strong, powerful women that we are. What do you say when you're coaching, women of my generation that maybe don't even have the understanding or perspective of how difficult it may have been being a strong woman?
Well, that's really interesting. It was difficult. It really was. But it really depended upon your perspective. My family, my mother and father, both believed that if you have an opinion and if you believe in that opinion, you have a right to speak out.
Yeah.
And they allowed me to do that growing up, and they taught me to do that throughout my education and throughout my childhood. And I remember being in college in the 60s and 70s where we were protesting civil rights and women's rights, and it just came very naturally to me because that's the way I was raised. When I coach women your age, I talk more in perspective of where they are now and what they have learned and what's stopping them from their true success. And many times that's their understanding they can't really be who they want to be. because they
Interesting.
don't know how to speak up for themselves.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a second because I have an example. Let me say this. I am not a pushy broad. I've really like wished I was in a lot of occasions because it's really, bit me in the you know what for not speaking up for myself, and I've lost time and money. So here's the scenario. I was on my way to the airport, got an Uber, get in the Uber, and it's horrific traffic. I mean, like everything's in the red, and it's like, okay, well, you know what? It's going to be what it's going to be. I got it early, so I was prepared. But then my driver decided, you know what? I'm going to do something creative. I'm not going to take the freeway. I'm going to take back roads. And what happened in doing that is we got completely gridlocked. And so it was like the GPS was like, go this way. So then it just rerouted you back into stop traffic, rerouted you back into stop traffic. And this went on for 3 hours.
And what were you thinking in those 3 hours?
Oh, okay. So I was thinking a lot of things, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to miss my flight. This guy's annoying the crap out of me because he's singing to the radio and he can't sing well. And so I was like internally like bubbling, like the anger, the frustration. And then, and then I was thinking like playing out in my head, like I should just tell him to turn around. I should just tell him to turn around, take me home, get back on the freeway. That would be so much easier. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't get it out of me until it was, finally 3 hours later, my little backseat voice said, you know what, I think maybe we could just turn around and then go get back on the freeway. But like, I didn't even say it in an assertive way. So like, what do you do with people like me?
Well, usually that has a deeper seed. It's a deeper root.
Yeah.
So I would really talk to you about where that came from. What's your earliest memory of that? And where in your childhood? And most importantly, who gave that to you?
Yeah.
That kind of teaching or that kind of instinct where a woman's place, a woman is to be seen and not heard, is an archaic way of looking at women in the world. So that came from something, and then we would tear it down and realize that those are not your tapes, Jessica. Those are your parents' tapes. Either they came from your mother or your father, and that came from their mother or father, from the books that were read, from the things that were taught, and realizing that even though your parents did the best they could do, that doesn't mean that everything was right. It doesn't mean everything had a sense of good mental health attached to it. It was just what they knew at the time. So when you separate yourself from what you were taught and allow yourself to think for yourself, then you emerge. And when you emerge and become exactly who you are, people think that's a pushy broad. But really, it's just Jessica speaking up for Jessica.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've had those moments too. And they felt so good. Like, like you finally do something like, and it's just like, oh, like that felt right. Like that felt powerful. That felt confident. That like got the job done. And so it's just, I think, a matter of, tapping into that and remembering that, I don't know what we think internally is going to go wrong by speaking up for ourselves.
I understand that. But look, we call that a positive reference, okay? You know it worked for you because after you did it, you felt empowered.
Yeah.
If you do something and you feel empowered, then it rings true. Then it's part of your gut, part of your core, which it was for me. But over the years, as I was working and I stood up for myself and I stood out as a leader and I did various things in my lifetime and had various businesses and worked in behavioral health and did all kinds of things that represented leadership and management, people would say, because I'm an outspoken woman, there goes the pushy broad. And it really made me laugh, pissed me off, and I decided to embrace it. Hence, I trademarked it. So, Pushy Broad from the Bronx is a registered trademark, which means nobody can say that they're the Pushy Broad from the Bronx than Ellen Stewart. because I own it and I'm proud to wear it. And there
Yeah.
are more women who are pushy broads. Hence my show, Women Who Push for More, because there are so many of us out there. And if you don't think you are, we're going to find out.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like a badge of honor. It's a badge of confidence to say, yeah, stand up for myself. I push for what I want and need. And I think it's something that I aspire to do more of. I'm working on it. Have you ever been told you're too pushy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody's, in some ways, sometimes we'll just say, okay, I got your message. Not because I spoke up, but maybe because I reiterated it one too many times. And I'm working on that. Okay.
Sure. Oh, you mean you're human?
I guess.
So, do you ever have those moments for yourself where, like, the inner voice, the lack of confidence creeps in and was like, hey, maybe, or, how do you deal with that?
It's not conceit at all. It's not ego. When I don't know something, I am the first to say I don't know or I need more information. It doesn't make me feel a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
A lack of confidence, I believe, is fear. And I deal with fear really well because I want to be able to examine it and see how to move forward. So fear in moving forward is not something that I feel. I just know that if I don't know something, I won't say something until I find out something more about it. But other than that, when I speak, I'm confident in what I say because I've researched it. Mm-hmm. When I come to the show, I do a lot of work on the guests that I interview, my Recovery Recharge show and my Women Who Push for More show. I do a lot of work behind it. I am very interested in who they are and what they do. When I am a recovery coach, I do a lot of work into what best behavioral practices are, and I spend a lot of time looking at medical journals and things from the American Society of Addiction Medicine. So I try to come prepared. So that doesn't make me less confident. That makes me prepared.
I talk about this a little bit when I'm training a new producer because there's always like am I going to push the right buttons? I'm new, I'm learning. And that's what I talk to them about is be prepared. Because the more prepared you are, then the more the more confident you're going to be naturally because you have that in front of you, right? Like you've been in there 10 minutes early, you've seen what you have to do. So it's kind of the same idea. So I think, maybe I'm coaching myself a little bit here, but I think I have to do the same thing in the situations where I'm uncomfortable, right? Because there's certain situations where you're like confident, you're comfortable, it's natural. And then there's situations where you're like, ooh, I'm not really looking forward to this. Right? And maybe you already know you're not looking forward to it, right? I didn't know what I was getting into with the car thing, right? That's like you learn from it, adjust next time, because believe me, that's never going to happen to me again.
Okay, well, that's really good. And then we call that positive and negative references in our lives, okay?
Yeah.
If we've had a negative experience and we have learned from it, that's great, or a positive experience. I always tell my clients we make lots of mistakes. We're entitled to make mistakes. We should make mistakes, and we learn from them. The trick is to make new mistakes, not to make the same old ones all the time.
Exactly. I want to talk about being prepared a little bit, and maybe you can give me and our audience a little coaching on this, because I want to go into those scenarios where maybe you're a leader, maybe you're a leader in your job, maybe you're a leader in your family, maybe you're a parent, and you're going to have a conversation, right? You're preparing for a conversation that you're going to have, and you're going to be met with resistance. It's not going to be this easy breezy, beautiful cover girl conversation. It's going to be, right? And you're someone like me, like that makes you extremely uncomfortable. What kind of things can we do to prepare for that and be ready to be met with that confrontation that we are just not excited about?
There are so many people that work with me that avoid confrontation. And it's really a shame because I want them to understand that confrontation doesn't mean crisis necessarily. Confrontation doesn't mean argumentative. It just means a difference of opinion, or it means that opinions have to be put together all at once, all in unison. So if you go into it saying that controversy doesn't mean confrontation, then you have an idea that you're not the only one speaking here. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. People also have to understand that confrontation doesn't mean that once that conversation begins, that it's the end, that it has to reach a conclusion. People think that confrontations mean ultimatums or crisis situations. Not necessarily. They just mean conversations that maybe require difference of opinions. But just as you are hosting this show and asking questions and moving things along, that's the same way people do that when they have confrontations. They have conversations, they ask questions, they give answers, they listen appropriately, and then they get through it.
Okay, so the irony is not lost on me here that I want to host this show called The Possibility Perspective, right? And the point of this is to hear from other people, get their perspectives, understand where they're coming from. And so, I think my aha moment from this is a little bit of, oh, so I've built up this confrontation in my head before I even get there. And then I've made myself, not confident about it, uneasy about it, whatever. And it could just be approached as a conversation with differences of opinions, and it's going to be what it's going to be. But what needs to be said needs to be said.
Exactly. And your audience can draw its own conclusions.
Right, exactly. Okay, I love this. So have you ever had a time where you wished you would have tapped into your pushy broad more? Has that ever happened to you? Just out of curiosity. Have you ever been like, oh, dang it, I wish I would have pushed more?
I'm not sure if I ever wished I would have pushed more. Sometimes I feel in some ways that I could have pushed less.
Okay.
Okay? Because when you are a pushy broad, that comes very naturally. So sometimes I have to temper, and like I do my coaching, realize that the drill sergeant isn't what's called for here. It's more the cheerleader. And that means to take a back seat sometimes.
And that's a balance you've just worked on, I imagine. I mean, some of it practice.
Absolutely. Practice, and not only that, but really understanding your audience, understanding your clients, understanding the people that are in front of you, realizing how you can make the most of trying to help them move forward.
So what piece of advice do you have for people who are in this kind of yo-yoing of, I'm confident sometimes, I'm really passive sometimes? Like what advice do you have for those people to try to find that balance, to kind of find who they are in their pushy broad space?
Well, it's a question of assessing the situation. I think it's really natural and normal for people to be confident sometimes and to be afraid sometimes. I mean, we wouldn't be human if we weren't those things. We're not comfortable in every single footing, and even me, the pushy broad, doesn't claim to know everything. But it starts with being prepared. If you want to do something that requires additional knowledge past the knowledge that you have, then realize that that knowledge, information, is power. So do your research. Find out so that you can form what you believe is an accurate assessment, an accurate opinion of how you really feel. And then, if you want to stand on a soapbox about it, at least you have the facts and the knowledge to back it up. And I think a lot of your fear will be dissipated.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me. Being prepared, being, educated, informed about what it is you're speaking on before you go speak on it. And it seems like common sense to me. But, common sense, but I've been guilty of not doing it. So there you go. Before we wrap up, tell people about your coaching, about how to get in touch with you, what you have to offer.
Thank you for that. All you have to do is go to pushybroadfromthebronx.com, and you will see that I do coaching for men and women for a variety of things: life coaching, career coaching, and my specialty is is recovery coaching. Meaning, if you are suffering from substance misuse and you want to get help, this is where you speak to the Pushy Broad. If you're coming into early recovery and you're coming out of treatment and you want to sustain that recovery, this is where you call the Pushy Broad. Or you're a parent or a loved one trying to figure out what to do with your loved one that is suffering and still trying to get help but doesn't know how. This is also where you call the Pushy Broad. So it's pushybroadfromthebronx.com. I also have an 800 number, 800-889-1757. Most of the time I will pick up the phone directly, and you can make a consultation appointment with me, and I will give you the first, I think it's 20 minutes free. If you go to the website, you can take a look.
Thank you for that. And, we're in a new year, 2025, and a lot of people have, that new year, new energy mentality of like, there's something I want to improve, there's something I want to change, there's something I want to do. And Ellen's a great tool to be able to help you on your journey of that. You've witnessed here in real time. I've gotten some coaching from her, but behind the scenes, she's mentored me quite a bit as well, and I'm grateful for that. Ellen, thank you for helping me work on my inner Pushy Broad.
Thank you so much. I still believe that you are a Pushy Broad. I know what you do. I know how much you accomplish. You have inner strength that you haven't even tapped yet.
Thank you. So, closing message, what would you want to say to people going into this new year? Words of wisdom, words of advice. What do you want to leave us with?
In 2025, it's more important than ever that women rise up and take a stand, that really stand for the things that are really important to you without fear of recrimination, without fear of being ostracized for standing up for what you believe in, which is why I am starting this brand new show, Women Who Push for More. Jessica and I are working on it. It's coming out in February, I promise you, and it will be about strong women just like you that are doing great things in this country and in this world to help empower you and help you find your voice. And that's what I wish you in 2025.
Thank you for that, and I'm excited about your show. And everyone, have yourselves a wonderful rest of the month, rest of the year. The Possibility Perspective is back now in full swing, so you can expect 2 episodes a month from me, the 1st and the 15th of every month. And I welcome your feedback. I welcome your questions. You can reach out to me at thepossibilityperspective.com, and I look forward to having some more great conversations in the new year. Thanks for listening to The Possibility Perspective on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information about the show, you can subscribe to the podcast. Visit thepossibilityperspective.com.